Well, now that we've done the mandatory pre-meeting save, let's see what this meeting is going to be about. At the very least, it's a novel idea to actually meet the people giving us a job for this game, considering all the other Metroids we've gone through. Okay, nothing scannable in this hallway, and again, I'm pretty sure I have an addiction. Apparently, we can't do any scanning just before we enter a room that's supposed to have a cutscene. Really? Another Samus clone?
Andreda, enough.
Ah, so a shapeshifter that thinks it's funny. I suppose I can give her some slack. It's not like she knows about the SAX since that part of the timeline hasn't happened yet, and Dark Samus isn't exactly public knowledge either at this stage of this game. I still feel a bit tempted to shoot her on sight though, just because, yeah, whenever there's another Samus, there is trouble.
That is correct, Core. And
What? You weren't expecting the biological supercomputer to be able to talk back to you? Hell, I think everyone who isn't a current member of the Federation military tensed up when she started talking for some reason. Bit odd, it's not like that was the kind of surprise that would make you want to reach for your weapon or something.
An unknown virus. We were forced to bring the network down. Fortunately, our scientists were quickly able to devise a vaccine.
I was under the impression this was a computer virus, not a biological one.
We were able to completely purge the virus.
And great, now I'm annoyed because I'm pretty sure vaccines are meant to make you more resistant to a disease, not cure it. But again, it's a bit shaky to know for sure since we're talking about biological supercomputers, and it wouldn't be too out there for things to work a little differently in that kind of case.
What is the logic in disrupting a Federation training mission?
They're pirates. How could they resist a prize like that?
If it's such an irresistible prize, then why was that ship operating alone?
The pirates boarded the Valhalla and gained access to the ship's Aurora unit, 313.
I don't suppose any of these units have personalized names, do they? Because I somehow doubt I'm gonna remember for long that the one assigned to this ship is 242.
Virus became irreversible.
But we're still vulnerable. If the pirates decide to launch a major offensive, we'd be hard-pressed to defend ourselves. We must...
And that, of course, is just begging for the pirates to make a major strike while you're off balance.
That's where you come in. We need you to deliver the vaccine to each of the AUs in this system.
Part of me wants to say that isn't really the kind of job you should give to a bounty hunter. The other can't help chuckling at the fact that we've never really been a bounty hunter in this series, even if that's what Samus is billed as.
Combat ready stations. Repeat. Condition red.
Sir, a space pirate attack fleet has just warped out of some sort of wormhole.
Of course they have. The story wants to pick things up a bit and get things actually rolling. We've certainly gone a good amount of time just world building without having to actually shoot anything or even see anything ominous considering it's a Metroid game. What was with the extra little nod between Samus and the Admiral there? Sure, the backstory says that at one point Samus was a member of the Federation military, but there's nothing about Admiral Dane personally knowing her. It certainly doesn't feel like we get any kind of special treatment compared to the other three in that meeting, but then it's not like we see how they get treated when we aren't around, given the perspective in this game. Maybe he nodded because he knows we're going to spend as much time scanning as possible, even as the ship is currently under attack and the game designers intended for this to be an opening sequence that feels pretty similar to Halo Combat Evolved. Right. That's everything in here. Sorry, I've been through too many battles to be worried about sparks from computer screens and camera shaking.
Samus, get to your ship. We need you down on the planet. Until we get the fleet in formation...
I think we're a little past formation, sir. Where's the captain of this ship? Or do you mean to tell me that the Admiral is the only person on this ship who can command things, while on the bridge and everyone else is just working the computers, while there's a supercomputer on board? Orphaned him young, huh? I'm sure that would be nice characterization in a series that wasn't generally focused on the player being isolated, and there being little to no character interaction to develop. Unfortunately, this is the wrong franchise if you want to see a moment of a military officer going full-on Captain Ahab or something along those lines. Right. Our first 2 kills of the game. I know they're low-level pirates, but somehow feels odd to kill off pirates this early on. The original Metroid Prime could get away with it by having the pirates be wounded when we first got there. This game decided to have the pirates do a full-scale assault at the absolute start of the game. So we need some weaker versions of them so we aren't overwhelmed when we're fighting them at our friggin' weakest. It kinda cheapens the pirates a little in my mind. So maybe I'm just being overly critical at the start of this thing. I kinda like that they have the eye things from the 2D games in here, even if they aren't being used to keep a door sealed shut or something. It's one of the things that I kinda miss from the other 2 Metroid Primes. Why didn't they introduce those to the 3D? It can't be all that well armed or armored if we're taking them down with so few shots. And excuse me for having very little respect for the Federation Marines who needed help against such basic foes here. It's not like they were absurdly outnumbered, and those were literally the most fragile foes in the game. It certainly doesn't bode well for our allies to do all that well against the enemy's higher-end troops later in the game, that's for sure. Though you'd think that seeing our allies have trouble against the most basic troops the pirates have would give me more of a sense of urgency. So why the hell am I still scanning absolutely everything we come across and slowing down the pace of the game? It's fairly obvious the designers were trying to make this a relatively exciting moment. Definitely not getting too much of the usual Metroid vibes in this one. Bloody hell, how many war-focused first-person shooters have I already gone through, and how many more do I still have on my to-do list? I mean, sure, it's unfair to compare Metroid Prime 3 as a whole to those kinds of games, but it's fairly obvious that's the atmosphere they were going for at the start of this game. And unfortunately, it's not making things feel more epic. If anything, it's making me feel that the game designers took some of the wrong lessons after Metroid Prime 2. But that's probably just premature judgment on my part. Another enemy type, this one with armor. Kind of gives the impression that armor isn't gonna mean much for a good amount of time. Okay, so we just managed to strip the bastard's armor off. At least that's who I assume we're shooting at there, and not one of the unarmored pirates that also running around. I know yellow flashes mean we're hitting someone with armor, and red flashes mean it's someone without, but it's not like I've been doing a great job of keeping track of our foes here. I'm literally just shooting them as I see them. Not really trying to concentrate my fire on the weakest or stronger ones first. And while to a degree, we still have the same lock-on thing we had in the previous games, the fact that our aim is determined by motion controls makes it a bit tougher to deal with things tactically. Hell, even if I manage to bind the pointer to my mouse, it's still awkward since it's not like any other first-person shooter I've ever done that has camera work like this. Yeesh. Anyway, now that we've finished the fight in here, time to deal with the power situation. And apparently we're just gonna have hostiles popping up out of nowhere on board a Federation ship. I'm sorry, but if the pirates can send reinforcements that casually on board a ship they don't even own, how the hell have they not taken over the bridge? This isn't really making the start of the game feel more epic, it's making the Federation look bad now. And making me wonder why the pirates have operated like, well, pirates over the years instead of openly destroying Federation ships in an outright war before now. It's not like anything we're running into so far seems to have anything to do with Phazon. It's got the most basic of the enemy's gear instead. On the one hand, it's a good thing that morph ball controls don't require any motion control bullshit. On the other hand, a keyboard isn't going to feel as accurate as a thumbstick, and there wasn't a practical way for me to use both a mouse and something with a thumbstick attached when setting up the controls here. Anyway, looks like the hunters from that meeting are holding their own so far. That doesn't make up for the Federation troops getting taken down or hiding from everything we've seen, but it's something. And even better, we just gained our first energy tank. And it doesn't feel like we really earned it. It's just a gimme. Right. More devices that need to be activated by us going into morph ball mode and then using a bomb. It's a tradition in the Metroid Prime games, and I probably mentioned in an earlier game in this series that that kind of tradition needs us to see some examples of people other than Samus activating those kinds of things on occasion. Otherwise, it ends up feeling a bit too gamey. Gamey things are kind of more acceptable in the 2D games, for there to be paths and devices that only Samus could possibly use. Not 3D ones with this much detail. Well, that was a nice visual to get us from point to point on the ship. I just wish I could find it in me to enjoy it wholeheartedly instead of wonder why Metroid feels like it's borrowing so much from Halo for this opening sequence. Seriously, repelling hostile borders was a thing in Halo Combat Evolved, Halo 2, and Halo 4. As a side note, considering how good the graphics are in this game, it's kind of noticeable that the view of our ship through that door was a picture of some kind, not three-dimensional assets that were pretty far away. I wouldn't say that was as jarringly bad as the JPEG image of a dog in Ace Combat 7, but it does raise the question of if the game engine couldn't actually pull off that long view. Why didn't the game designers just not give us that kind of long view to see we're so close to the ship? I know, it's more of a nitpicky thing than the more critical stuff of the Halo-style opening for this Metroid game. Still, I noticed it and felt it was worth mentioning. Right. Of course we can't just charge beam our way to the terminal and get the door open in a hurry. Why would I even think there was some form of urgency on this ship that's under attack in a Metroid Prime game, and I've been scanning everything we've come across? I'm pretty sure the ship is going to need more than just minor maintenance after this battle, but then I'm not really an expert in how you remove boarding vessels from your ship without venting atmosphere or other such tasks that will need to be done when this battle's over. Assuming, of course, that this ship still exists when the battle is over and isn't just destroyed. Again? Feels like bullshit considering the enemy is probably shooting the defense systems just to get into the ship in such numbers. Okay, kind of amusing to watch the body fall that far down. It's not like this game has any kind of ragdoll physics. And apparently our radar on the top left doesn't have any means to tell us what elevation the enemy is. That wasn't so much of an issue in the previous two Metroid Primes, but I have the distinct feeling the enemy is going to be a lot more evasive and mobile in this one than the other two GameCube games. That could just be paranoia talking due to the different control scheme. I don't suppose they can use that frigate's scrap metal to help repair the Olympus, can they? Though I suppose that doesn't really matter all that much after all. Once we're done fighting on this ship, I doubt we're going to be back here regardless of if the ship survives the battle or not. Huh. Wonder why the missile launcher makes our cannon blue when missile doors typically are red for regular or green for super missiles. Kind of pointless to give us a missile obstacle and have the missile upgrade within the same damn room. And I can't find it in me to give this game any slack for that, since this is the third game in the three-dimensional part of the series. And while I did have issues with each of the first two Metroid Primes, the opening sequence was not among those issues. Hell, the beginning of was the absolute best part of Metroid Prime 2. Well, maybe this game is gonna pick up later on. Part of me wants to give that Marine credit for surviving so long against something that he apparently wasn't ready to deal with in any way. The other just can't help groaning at the fact that he died the instant the door opened in a poor attempt to make us feel intimidated by the floating robots heading our way. Okay, that was a little fun to deal with. But not fun enough to justify the whole motion control thing, though maybe I only have something against motion controls, because it's such a pain in the ass to emulate. Especially since you have to do a lot of work to get it to set up for each game, even in a pretty good emulator like Dolphin. I can certainly name at least one game with Wii motion controls I've wanted to replay for years, but it's just too much trouble at this point. Red Steel. I suppose that's just something I'll have to LP in the distant future. Yeah, this is as good a time as any to save, but I'm not really willing to end the clip just yet. Let's throw some more in. Again, I just can't find it in me to care about the ship being under attack while we're still in it. Sorry, can't feel scared by the roar, just like I can't care about the explosions. Hell, Seeing a Marine getting killed in Halo has some effect, while seeing one die here is pretty forgettable. Okay, so we're apparently getting our ship out of here so we can have a boss fight in its previous place. A boss fight that looks incredibly similar to some enemies we ran into in the first Metroid Prime. Will this guy measure up to them? Well, at least this hostile has something to do with Phazon. Really? That's a little damage we take from an enemy we absolutely can't run into unless we gain our first energy tank. I know some of what happened in Metroid Prime 2 was unfairly difficult, but still, this game feels like steps too far to rectify that here. Though again, it's possible I'm just being way too judgmental this early on. It is a bad first impression, but we got plenty of time to see more. Anyway, we haven't managed to do any real damage to the enemy's health bar, but I'm sure we managed to make some progress. Well, that feels like it should have hit us. Right. Broke the covering on his head. Just needs to pound the hell out of the big guy right there. And good God, the health bar goes down fast once that little barrier is going. I'm pretty sure our first encounter with one of these things in the first Metroid Prime was more memorable. Hell, the first boss fights of Metroid Prime 1 and 2 were a lot more memorable than this. This was just... I don't even know what. Well, okay. That thing getting hit by a random fighter in the space battle was kind of funny. It doesn't really make the situation feel all that epic to me, though, especially since there's no sense of urgency, even though we're on a ship that's under attack and need to get into our personal ship inside of that ship to get to the planet below for more fighting. It's not that I'm against action sequences, it's that Metroid as a franchise really isn't the kind of franchise to pull off this sort of thing. It's a franchise of isolation and exploration, neither of which we've been able to do here.